toy.
We want it bin. I have spoken.
Welcome to episode 135 of the Smugglers Galaxy podcast, your favorite Star Wars podcast for smugglers in the galaxy. Well, I did say episode 135, so we're good. I don't need to say that again. I'm Glenn, and Jason is in Florida right now. Oh, no, he's actually in Myrtle Beach, so that's even maybe a little bit better than Florida, except there's no Disney, but he did post pictures of a Disney outlet up there, so that's kind of cool.
Hey.
So in his absence, we've got Mr. Jordan Duncan, Jordan Ghastly for all you people on the YouTubes and everything else that he does. Jordan, how you doing this morning?
I'm all right, man. How are you doing?
I am good. Kind of, excited. Got my like third or fourth cup of coffee going. You've got some spiked lemonade, you said.
I do. I woke up early and I had to hit the coffee early because I had to do some stuff around the house this morning.
Yeah.
And then it got to be around, I don't know, like 11:15, 11:20 or something. And I'm like, I wonder when Glenn wants to record. So I sent that message to you and I'm like, yo.
Yeah, we had talked yesterday and we're like about noon and I'm cooked breakfast and I'm getting, doing like a little bit of housework. So that's why I didn't see it for 20 minutes because I was running the vacuum.
That's I was doing I was cleaning up around here too. I'm trying to get this place looking nice. I feel like I've neglected cleaning my house for like the last 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've been busy the last 2 weekends and I come home and my house just looks like a wreck.
That's what we're doing because, last weekend was Toylanta. This weekend was the swap meet. And you start looking and I'm like, I had a show Friday night. So that messed up my swap meet, but the weather, so it kind of worked out good. The weather kind of pushed everything's back. So, it kind of worked out good for me. But yeah, it's like next weekend's Easter. Then the weekend after that, we've got something going on. And then it just all of a sudden it piles up and you're like, what am I doing? And my wife texted me. She's like, hey, mulch is on sale at Home Depot. And I'm like, crap, something else.
This is adulthood, Glenn. This is this is what happens whenever you pass the age of 35. You're just perpetually busy with doing random stuff from then until, I don't know, your 60s, your 70s, who knows?
Right. Yeah. Until you retire and move into an old folks home and have somebody take care of you, then that's what you're doing. I already told my wife, I'm like, man, when I hit like 70, I don't care. Sell the house, put me at an old folks apartment complex where I don't have to worry about anything, and I'll be happy. So anyway, how was your week?
It was actually kind of busy. I'm sure we'll talk about Toylanta.
Yeah, we'll get into Toylanta a little bit.
But as far as my week post Toylanta, it was actually kind of, I had to do some stuff for work. I'm planning an event for work, and then I actually had to do another program for work that week. And it was, so once Toylanta ended, I didn't have time to decompress from Toylanta. I had to just jump right into doing work stuff.
Oh.
So and then finally Friday of this last week was kind of like the first day, even though I still had to work. I it was an easy day at work, so I was able to just kind of hang out. Also, one of my cats is rubbing up against my microphone right now. So if you guys hear
awesome.
some meows or some purrs, I've got one of my cats snooping around.
Yeah.
No, I was able to I guess take it easy on a Friday work day, but then Saturday, we had the toy swap in Powder Springs, our bi-monthly toy swap that we typically have. Yeah. So I'm still kind of riding the high from Toylanta. Like I still haven't hit the withdrawal portion of Toylanta yet. So I was looking forward to the toy swap so I could just meet up with a handful of the people that we were hanging out with at Toylanta. So sorry, my cat's messing around. All right. So just to kind of, I've been calling it my Toylanta hangover, where I'm just kind
Right.
of slowly getting over the Toylanta, just to the hustle and bustle and epicness of Toylanta. So, but no, it was a fun day yesterday. You know, the weather started out really bad,
Mhm.
and by whenever I got there, it was still cloudy and rainy at the toy swap, and the rain lasted for like maybe 5 minutes, and then
Awesome.
10 minutes later, the clouds parted and the sun came out, and it was great weather for the rest of the day. So it was fun hanging out at the toy swap. The weather was nice, although it was a little windy. People were starting to lose their tents, and stuff was blowing off of tables, which is unfortunate. But I
Yeah.
guess them's the breaks. You can't combat Mother Nature if you're having an outside event.
No, and I was at a booth and the wind comes and you just kind of grab onto the tent and the guy's like, I got it, we're good. I'm like, dude, it's a force of habit hanging out here.
Mm-hmm.
And you start
Mm-hmm.
looking for stuff falling. But yeah, no, we got there about noon. Because I had a show Friday night. I didn't get it home till about 2:30. So it was a lazy Saturday, and about 9:30, 10 o'clock, you're looking at your watch going, we need to start moving if we're gonna get there anytime soon. And uh when we showed up at noon, it was a rocking. I was really surprised to see that amount of people there at that late.
I think a lot of I think there was a combination of two things. I think there were a lot of people who were coming out post Toylanta, like a lot of people who went to the Toylanta show.
Mhm.
And then I think there were also a lot of people who didn't want to pay to go to a convention, were
Right.
kind of getting their toy fix. So they were probably hyped up from all the post Toylanta buzz, and they were just kind of itching to go to a toy show. So um, there were also a handful of different vendors this
I
time
noticed
around.
that.
So I was actually really happy to see the variety. Not that I'm not happy to see familiar faces and whatnot, but it's always nice to see new vendors come in, because I always think the variety of stuff at those toy swaps, because it's a free show. You can just show
Right.
up. I
Right.
mean, if you're a vendor, you have to pay for a vendor table space, but I always think it's really cool whenever new vendors and dealers show up, because I feel like it adds to the variety.
Right. And it's like minimal. It's like $10 to show up.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, $10 or $15 for a table is not it's not very expensive at all. So
No. So did you pick anything up?
I did actually. Also, I want to actually use this time to give a shout out to the our local toy collecting community and a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
friends that I've made through the collecting community. So when I was with my buddy Richard, who's always in the toy hunt videos, and we were walking around, and I had not planned on buying anything, because again, we'll talk about how much I spent at Toylanta. Um,
Yes. We'll,
but
we'll
I
get into that in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't plan on buying anything. So because of that, I didn't bring cash. And I know a lot of vendors do Zelle and Venmo and PayPal, but I always think for a show like that, cash is just the quickest. Like I'm not
Right.
gonna. So I neglected, or I specifically neglected to stop by an ATM, because I'm like, I'm not gonna buy anything. And then it wasn't until like maybe an hour or two into the show, my buddy Douglas FaceTimes me, and he's like, "Hey, where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm over here." And he looked in my direction. He's like, "I see you. Come. Yeah, I'm waving at you. Come here real quick." And he was looking out for me for some Marvel Legends stuff.
Uh-huh.
And there was this empty space when I got there, and I guess the dude showed up a little late and set up after the sun had come out. And this dude had ridiculous deals on tons of really cool Marvel Legends stuff. Um, and I picked up, so I was looking at his table, and I saw that he had this Hulk figure that I've been looking for. It came out about a year ago. It's the Marvel Legends 20th anniversary Incredible Hulk. And it was like a $40 figure when it came out.
Mhm.
It's a little hard to find now, so I think you can still get it for about 50 on the secondary market. But I asked him how much, and he goes, $30. And I was like, oh man, I kind of want to do this. And he goes, 25. He's like, I'm just trying to get rid of it. 25. And I was like, oh my God. And like I panicked for a second and I said, I need cash. Does anybody have cash? Because I didn't even think to ask him, do you take Venmo or PayPal? But I was like, oh my God, I need cash real quick. Not one, not two, but three friends within 2 seconds had their wallets out to help me with $25 cash.
That's awesome.
To get this figure because they all knew it was too good of a deal to pass up.
Right.
And so my buddy Douglas, my buddy Ricky, and Richard all like with again 2 seconds had their wallets out. Shout out to Ricky because he already had cash in his hand and, and he's like, here you go, man, I got you. And he just paid the dude for me. And I actually ended up I already needed to PayPal Ricky from some stuff I picked up from him the day before. So I just tacked on whatever, that $25 to what I owed him. So I just thought it was really cool that friends that I've met in the community were just like Johnny on the spot, willing to help me because they all, like I said, I didn't have cash and everyone just without question just grabbed their wallets. And I thought that was really cool. And I don't know. I just think it kind of shows how willing and supportive the community is around here or in our North Georgia area.
Right.
So I think, I don't know. It's like this really cool unspoken brotherhood. And I think, or sisterhood, I'm not here to what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not here to discriminate.
Right. But I mean, that's sort of where it always kind of in the English language, that's kind of where everything goes. Or the proper way to speak. I don't know if things are changing. Right.
Personhood. There we go.
There you go.
But anyway, point I'm getting at is I thought it was really cool that friends I've made in the community were without question willing to help me, like literally at the drop of a hat.
Right.
And I just thought that was really cool. And that the toy was fun, but that was kind of the highlight of my day was that just like people were like, oh yeah, I got you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, those swaps, that's what I love about those swaps is it's more hanging out than it is about the toys. Yeah, you're going to find some cool stuff, but half the reason to go is to hang out and you get to see some cool stuff. I mean, you may not buy anything, but we hung out for half an hour and you always are talking to people and a lot of the times I suck at names and I'll forget who they are, but I'm like, oh yeah, you're the guy that had all the superpower stuff that Second Chance bought or, stuff like that. So I remember what they had and what they're into. So it's always fun to hang out. Is that all you picked up?
That from yesterday at the toy swap. Yes, that's all. No. My buddy Jeremy, who's in the Georgia action figure group. He actually had a whole bunch of really cool painted mini Snake Mountains. Like so a couple years ago, whenever they started to reissue all these Masters of the Universe Origins figures, they did like little blind box toys.
Yeah.
And the blind boxes were in the shape of Grayskull or Snake Mountain. And so he bought a whole bunch of them on clearance and then he started to paint them and give them detail. And he was just selling them for $10. But, I've known Jeremy we've been friends for over 20 years. So he just like gave one to me.
That's awesome.
So, which was really cool of him. So Jeremy's a really good dude, and especially like he's like super generous when it comes to stuff like that too. If he knows that you're looking for stuff, he'll be like, "Oh, I got one. You can just have it."
That's awesome.
So yeah, so those are the only two things I got from the swap, and I'm trying to remember if I picked up anything after the swap. I don't think so. I think I attempted to go into a Target to see if the new Indiana Jones Adventure Series figures were out yet, because I did see a few of them at the toy swap for cost. There's a really cool vendor. His name's Edwin, and his booth is always a really cool hodgepodge of like everything. He's got plush, he's got action figures, he's got vintage, he's got coloring books, he's got puzzle. Like it really is a cool hodgepodge of a bunch of stuff. And it just so happened that he had 3 of the new Indiana Jones action figures for again, like the retail for $25. and he didn't have the Indy or the Tote, which are the two I was looking for.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh, well, if he found them, then they've got to be hitting the shelves. So I hit a Target on the way home, but I didn't see anything. And I think I was like, you know what? Between this weekend and last weekend, I think I'm good. I think I should replenish the well and hit it
Right.
again in a couple of weeks. So
Gotcha.
I decided to come home after that.
Sweet. Yeah, I was walking around and I got to this one table and there was like this little 5 or 6 year old, maybe 7, 8, I don't know, kid was there and he's like, there was a round table and he's like, this is my table. Look at it. Look at all the stuff I have for sale, being a total little salesman. So he had a little Galactic Heroes ATST. And I'm like, dude, how much you want for that? He goes, $3. And I'm thinking, I'm in the same boat you're at. I don't have cash and I don't really want a $3 $3 send
Mhm.
Venmo $3 or whatever. And then the guy, I don't know if you saw the couple of bootleg ceramic R2s that were at Toylanta last week.
No, I missed those.
Well, that was it was his dad. That guy had one of the ones that was on like this this big base, like old school. You know what, when you hear the term vomit art or whatever, it just
Oh yeah.
it's not one of those, but they painted it to look like that, where it's just like
Yeah,
a bunch of crap, random stuff. It's like a mosaic almost. But it's 2 or 3 colors. And then he had a Wampa. So I picked all it because I'm like, how much you want for the R2? And he wanted half of what he had it at Toylanta, and then he wanted like $10 for the Wampa. So I'm like, all right, I can PayPal you $53 for those. So
it
I
was
got,
worth it.
yeah, that's all I picked up. And then we went by second chance after the toy swap because they had a Pete as Boba Fett pin.
Hmm.
And I'd pick that up because I have, it's a Disney, it's a Boba Fett. You got to kind
Hmm.
of mash them together. And I picked up a paint sample or a paint sign off of him as Django Fett. It just came in, so I got that from China in like 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. And I was messaging the seller, going, "Dude, what's going on? Where's it at?" And I think what he did was shipped it to somewhere in California, and then they relabeled it and shipped it to me. So
Mm.
I don't know. People do crazy stuff like that for
Hmm.
shipping stuff around,
Didn't
overseas.
didn't Mandy pick up a whole bunch of mini
She did, yeah.
Ewok figures?
Yeah, she picked up some Play School Ewoks and then a couple of the Spanish Ewoks. And then the Play School Ewok, she was comparing to some of the ones she has, and they're different colors. Like the cloaks are different colors.
Oh, that's cool.
So she's got more, variants of them.
Nice.
And we were at Second Chance, and she broke them out, and they were looking at them, and they were like, "You got a deal," because I think one of them was worth what she paid for the whole lot.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of those toy shows, because sometimes you pass a booth. Like, I guess it's one thing when you go and you see a lot of modern stuff still in the box. And I say modern, like stuff within the last, let's say, 10 years.
Yeah.
Still in the box or still on the card, and people are trying to get a decent amount for them. But then you've got like the vendors that just have random stuff. They just have bins of old stuff. And when you dig around in them, and I hesitate to use the phrase, they don't know what they have. They probably know what they have.
Mhm.
But they're also just like, to them, it's just stuff that they're trying to unload. Right. So
Right. Yeah.
you get lucky, if, crate digging, so to speak.
Yeah, that's what Jason was going to put some stuff out at Toylanta, and he was comparing to other stuff, but he's like, "Oh, I'm going to price it low because I want to get rid of it. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
if I make money."
There was a new table, or at least new to me, that I can't confirm whether or not they had set up before or not, but they were down the main pathway, and they were the first closest to the antique mall
Uh-huh.
on the left. They had a whole bunch of bagged Marvel Legends, but they also had a whole bunch of bagged vintage stuff too. They had a bunch of bagged She-Ra figures. They had, I feel like I want to say they had a She-Ra castle, like
Oh,
the
wow.
castle playset. They had a whole bunch of 80s plush. There were a couple popples in there that were in really good condition. And I feel like we've mentioned a bunch of stuff that's not Star Wars on the Star Wars podcast,
Dude, that's all good.
but they had some really cool stuff, and I thought they actually had this really interesting Ziploc bag of like these tiny little like the static figures that are
Mhm.
just in one pose of the 1980s Filmation Ghostbusters.
Oh wow.
And I don't see a lot of Filmation Ghostbuster stuff
Mhm.
on the secondary market. And when I do, it's usually really expensive.
You're
Like
right.
I saw a couple of figures at Toylanta still on the card, and the guy was wanting like 250 to 300 for each one.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. The one thing I kind of wanted to pick up at Toylanta was a couple of carded GoBots, but they were wanting like 150 for them. And
Oh, we must have gone to the same booth then.
yeah,
Because there were a couple of carded GoBots that I was looking at the black and green Psykill.
that one was awesome.
Yeah, dude wanted 120 for it. And let me tell
Wow.
you, for a brief moment, I thought because I used to have that one too. I had the original one, the red and blue and yellow one,
Right.
and I also had that one. And I for a minute, I was like, I could
Yeah.
do it. I because I had the money on me, but I decided not to.
Yeah. That would ate up all my Mythic Legions money.
True. That's three Mythic Legions figures.
Right. But that Mythic, we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
Mythic Legion was just a totally different budget. That was not even a budget because
Mm-hmm.
that was just like, I'm going to spend money on this because they're cool.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, well, the thing that also held me back from buying that is there was that toy show in Gwinnett about a year ago, and they had a
Mm-hmm.
full size Psykill, one of the 12-inch Psykills for the same price. So that's why I didn't jump on it.
Yeah, I actually did see one of those at Toylanta too for roughly about the same price.
Yeah.
It was in one of the side rooms from the
Uh-huh.
main room. Not the one with the Kenner guys, but the small one right next
Okay.
to it.
Damn, I got to start paying more attention to this stuff.
Oh, I did, buddy. I did probably 10 passes in each room on
Mm.
Saturday at Toylanta. I was trying to film, but I was also trying to shop at the same
Uh-huh.
time. So it was I let's just say I got my steps in that day for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Toylanta's it is. It's just you gotta make a bunch of passes. And I'm one of those guys where I kind of glance over everything and I never really
Mm-hmm,
look in the nooks and crannies because that's what Mandy's my nook and cranny girl.
mm-hmm,
But yeah, I just totally missed that Psycho. It'd have been cool to
mm-hmm.
see another one. But how was your Toylanta?
Dude, Toylanta was fantastic. Um, I man, I don't even know where to begin. I at first I was very fortunate this year that I had applied for a press pass.
Uh-huh.
So this is actually a funny story. I didn't mean to apply for a press pass for Toylanta. I actually emailed the guy. His name's Ricky.
Right.
For a press pass for Joe Lanta back in September, and I didn't hear anything back because I emailed him like 2 weeks before or a week before or something like that, and I didn't hear anything from him. And then Joe Lanta came and went, and I was like, oh, well, I guess no harm, no foul. I'm probably too small time as I have, as far as like YouTube goes, I have less than 1,000 subscribers, and uh, I'm not monetized, so I'm very very small potatoes on YouTube. Um, but every once in a while, I'll get lucky, and somebody be like, "Yeah, we'll hook you up with a press pass." So
Yeah.
anyway, Joe Lanta came and went, and I didn't think anything of it. And then a few days after Joe Lanta, Ricky from Toylanta got in touch with me and said, uh, "Hey, what, as far as press passes go, what do you do? Do you have a YouTube page? Do you have a blog? And I was like, oh yeah, I do this YouTube page, and I actually sent him my video from Toylanta of last year,
Hmm.
which as far as high performing videos that I have, like that's one of the highest performing videos. It has like almost 2,000 views, which again is good for me. Like
Right.
I realize on the broader scheme of YouTube in general, like that's small potatoes, but for me, that's pretty good.
Right.
Um, and he emailed back like almost instantly and said, "Oh yeah, I've seen your video. Yeah, dude, I can put you on the list for a press pass. That gets you into the preview night, and it'll get you into the panels, and it'll get you into the costume con, or like whatever, like all the extra stuff." And I was like, "Oh, sweet!" And I don't know. I was very grateful that he saw the video and was like, "Oh yeah, dude, we can make that happen." So I wanted to make the best video because he didn't have to give me a full weekend like a press pass,
Right.
and that would have been that was a $50 pass that he could have sold. So I wanted to make as good a video as I could for him, and then the video, like normally my toy hunt videos end up being like 30 to 40 minutes long at most. This was almost a 2-hour video of the entire weekend.
I
And
watched it. It's a long video.
so yeah, it is, and I'm sorry I did that to people. Like as I was editing it, I was like, man, maybe I should break this up into three days, and I was like, nah, screw it, just one big
Right.
one.
Well,
So
you can fast forward and stuff on it, so you can kind of go, okay, oh, I want to see that, or oh, let's
yeah,
go.
so Toylanta itself was fantastic. We Richard and I got there pretty early, and you were one of the first people we saw because you just come true. I was actually started to record the intro to the preview night, and you just come driving and barreling through, and you're like, "Can I be in your video?" Which was awesome. I
Yeah,
loved it so much. I loved that.
it was great because I was watching the video and I'm like showing it to Mandy. I'm like, watch, and you could see me pull up and everything,
Oh,
like
and it's
up the
like
driveway and stuff.
not only that, but it's almost like it was meant to be, because when you hit the brakes, you were perfectly in between me and Richard, looking dead set at the camera. But no, so we got there, we bumped into you and Jason, and we got our badges, and then we realized that it was going to be another 2.5, 3 hours until showtime. So we were just kind of hanging around, walking around, hanging around. And then of course the hit of the elephant in the room, the big hit of the show was the fact that Four Horsemen
Oh my God. Yeah.
were there. So Four Horsemen, who do the toy line Mythic Legions and the upcoming Cosmic Legions, they've also been hands-on with a lot of like, I know that a lot of their sculptors and artists get hired out for other companies. Like I feel like Super 7 has hired them to sculpt some stuff, and I feel like Mezco has hired them to sculpt some stuff as well. There's a handful of other things, but the Four Horsemen used to, way back in the late 90s, if I'm not mistaken, used to work for Todd McFarlane.
Wow.
Back whenever in the late 90s when Spawn was really big, and the McFarlane toys were super popular.
I can believe that. I think when you put the two and two together, they definitely have some similarities.
So I know that so the four guys that started Four Horsemen broke off from McFarlane in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I feel like their first gig was with Mattel whenever the first Harry Potter film came out. And I think they were the guys that made the first Harry Potter action figures.
Oh, wow.
But in 2002, they were the ones that did all of the Masters of the Universe 2000X figures from whenever they rebooted Masters of the Universe in 2002 with the Cartoon Network show. And then throughout like the decades, they kind of worked on some Masters of the Universe stuff here and there. But around, I think it was like 2014, 2015, they decided to do their own thing with this Mythic Legions thing.
Okay.
And I didn't find out about Mythic Legions until like maybe a few years ago. And at the time, my collecting philosophy was like, oh no, those are too expensive. I can't do that. And then I ended up acquiring one somehow. I can't remember how. But then I realized how great I saw how great the quality of figure it was. I was like, oh no, this is going to be bad for me.
Oh yeah.
And I've picked up a few here and there. And but now I have so many. I have so many of these figures now, and I actually got you to buy
Yeah, I
to
picked
buy a handful.
right. I picked up 5, and then I pre-ordered 3 of the Cosmic Legions. So yeah, here we go.
So I guess to to not alienate the Star Wars fan base, like what do you collect when you're not collecting Star Wars, right? Like,
Right.
so if because I know your collection, you collect Boba Fett's, but also like you're not doing Black Series anymore. Like you're
I
doing
still I still buy the Boba Fett Black Series when it's feasible, but crap. When I find them on clearance, let's put it that way, I'll
right.
buy them.
Because I
But
mean, like I know everybody has their favorite character, but even when you have your favorite character, how many of your favorite character do you really need?
exactly.
Right. So if Star Wars collecting, not in the broad sense, but in a personal sense, like if you have just about everything that you're looking for, and what you're looking for is becoming more and more niche, what else do you collect? Like I know that you collect the Bill and Ted stuff because you have all those really cool test shots and this first shots and whatnot, but like you almost have all of those. So it's
I
like what do you start collecting when the stuff you collected is already collected?
exactly. It
So
is, and that's where I'm at, and that's sort of what happened with the Mythic Legions is you find them, and well, you see them, and the whole thing that started with me is you found the cowardice, right? Is that the one,
Kawaros, yeah.
what's it called?
Kawaros.
Of course. I see. I don't know. I'm like the one that looks like that
Looks
Battle
like Battle
Cat.
Cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I can't even think of Battle Cat right now. But I saw that one about a year ago. Somebody had posted, and I'm like, that's a badass looking figure. And then Saturday morning, you were like, look who they had. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, Robert, are you buying that one? He's like, nope. I said, here's my credit card.
Yeah. Well, do you remember when we went to Joe Fest
Yeah.
last year? So I ended up trading a figure with somebody there, and one of the figures that I got was the Mythic Legions. It was the Panther tribute figure. His name is Purplor, but so I got one of those last year, when a year ago when we went to Joe Fest in
Right.
Augusta. So I'm trying to expand on some of those Motu tribute figures because, like they worked on a bunch of Motu stuff, but they can't legally call it Masters of the Universe.
Right.
So they do these tribute and homage figures, and they fit them into the Mythic Legions canon, and then they'll do nice little nods. So, and the Kawaros was the Battle Cat, which it just looks so good. It looks so cool.
That it's an amazing figure, and then it just sort of opened the floodgates for me. And I'm like, if I got one, because I had looked and I was really trying to buy one or two, and nothing really, you kind of first look, you're like, I don't really see anything, so I'm not going to buy it. But then when I got that one, the floodgates just kind of opened. I'm like, oh shoot, look at these vampires; those are badass. And I picked up a couple of those, and
because you ended up getting the Kawaros, which was the Battle Cat tribute.
Yep.
You got the Lord Dragul, which is the Hordak tribute.
Yep.
And then didn't you just get one of the random skeletons?
Yeah, I got the neon green skeleton.
Okay. Yeah. I think that one's named Scaphoid.
Yeah.
I picked that one up too.
Yeah, and I got the guy with the bull head, the red guy with the bull, like he had an orc head and a bull head.
Oh, yeah.
And then I picked up another vampire, the one that had like the lady on his armor.
Okay, I've got that one too. That's Baron Volagar.
Yeah.
He just sounds badass.
He does, and he looks awesome.
So let me ask you a question
Yeah.
before we continue on with the rest of Toylanta talk. When you picked up your first Mythic Legions figure, and then we all ended up taking a break at the the restaurant, the hotel restaurant, and you started to open them up, what was your first impression on the quality of those figures?
They were outstanding. I'm looking at them from a Black Series collector, going, why can't because you're buying them at $40 a piece from Four Horsemen, which is not what they're going. I mean, even at $50 from a retailer, it's still a good deal. But yeah, the quality of those things, that to me, it felt more like the Bandai stuff. Like the Bandai Boba Fett, that's $100 figure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the quality was.
Mm-hmm.
In truthful, in my mind, I'm like, this really should be double the price.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're getting the heads. I mean, the Cowardice had 2 extra heads, and it had a neck piece. It had extra hands. All the skeleton had another head. The Hordak figure had 2 heads on it, and I wasn't going to buy the Hordak because I'm like, I got to stop. And then Tony Johnson goes, look at the extra head it came with. I'm like, God damn it! I'm guessing I'm going to buy that
It
one.
does look pretty cool.
Yeah, and then I'm kind of kicking myself for not buying the Tila figure because I had it in my hand. I'm like, this is cool looking, and I just didn't buy her. And then you see her later on, people are selling them for like $100, and it's at that point you're like, damn it, that was a good value. I should have bought her. And I guess I'm learning, that if you think about it, you need to just go ahead and buy it.
Right, especially if you're buying it directly from the Four Horsemen, because when they go to their shows, like they're selling all of their stuff for their cost. So like $40 for their, your standard figure, 50 for a deluxe, and then if they have like some of the larger figures, they can range between like 60 to 80. But
Right.
you're getting that solid quality. I'll go through what I ended up buying, but one of the ones that I did get real quick is one of the larger half giant figures. That's a Cyclops, and I opened him last night, and man, he's so cool. It's so good. The quality is just so good.
I mean, it's number one, it's outstanding quality, and they hold their poses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to make me a better poser because like the Black Series stuff, I'm going to stand him and, let me turn him turn the waist a little bit so that he's not facing straight on. But these Mythic Legions, man, you could do crazy stuff posing them. They actually, bend and hold and stand very well.
Right. So and I've said it on this very show right here many times. Even the last time you had me on and I was talking about Black Series, and I'm not trying to like go down the harping on Black Series road again, but one of my main arguments has always been there's no reason that Black Series for a $25 price point figure should not have double elbow joints and double knee joints across the board. I know some figures have them and some figures don't. So I've been very vocal about that. However, the Mythic Legions don't have double elbow or double knee, and I get far more posability out of those than I do any Black Series. So obviously it's a case by case basis for articulation, but the way that the Mythic Legions figures are articulated or designed to be articulated, those suckers hold some really solid. You can get them in some really dynamic poses, and I would hope so for the higher price point, right? Like it's and I say higher price point. I was also talking with another one of the YouTube guys. His name's Greg Cook, super nice guy.
All right.
He and I were chatting, and he's like, whenever the deluxe Star Wars figures come out, they're now at a $35 price point.
Yep.
$5 more, I can have a Mythic Legions figure, and it's heftier plastic. It's a better quality figure. It has better mobility. So it's at this point, it's a no-brainer. Like, yeah, it's not a Star Wars figure. It's a Mythic Legions figure. But man, just the quality of figure. And I'm not saying that everybody should stop collecting Black Series. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you should collect Black Series in lieu of collecting Mythic Legions. That's not what I'm saying. And I realize that like I'm comparing apples to oranges on this, but I guess price point wise, Hasbro is here with a deluxe figure and Four Horsemen is here with a standard figure, and there's only a $5 difference.
Yeah.
And the difference in quality is astronomical. Now, I'm sure there's arguments to be made of like, well, Mythic Legions is its own franchise, so you don't have to pay, or its own IP, so you don't have to pay um, a licensing fee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But still, even with that, you get so much more figure for a difference of only $5. It's
Right.
bonkers how much more figure you get.
I mean, even if you're going to buy it on the secondary market and you're paying $50 from, like, I know Toy Department sells them because they posted that they had the All-Star figures come in and they were at $50. It's
Mm-hmm.
$40 from Mythic Legions, $50 from Toy Department. I'd be more than happy to pay the $50 versus the 40 for a Black Series, or 35 or whatever. You know, you went from $5 to $15, and it's still a better value,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in my
No,
opinion.
I'm with you. No, I'm with you.
Because
All
like
that.
I'm sorry, but like the Luke and the Grogu that just came out from the training thing, that's a
Yeah.
$45 pack, and it's like, it's, to me, where's the value in that?
That's a yeah. No, I'm right there with you because, like, first off, how many times have we gotten a Grogu? Like,
Right.
there's been three Mando and Grogu 2 packs, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
There's been one standard Black Series Grogu when he was in the tiny little the black box,
Right.
and then he just had another release Black Series wise where he comes with the pram.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, and I can't confirm this because I've not had it in hand, but I think it's just a repack of one of the 2 pack Grogu's with the pram.
It
So,
wouldn't surprise me.
so you're getting a figure we've had multiple times with this. Maybe it's a newish Luke Skywalker. I haven't compared the Jedi Luke that's coming out, that should be coming out very soon, to the one that's in this 2 pack, but I don't know. I feel like that's not that great of a value.
No, the only thing different I can see in the Jedi Luke is you can sit him Indian style,
Mm-hmm.
which in Black Series terms, that's pretty incredible. But is it worth the $45 figure so you can sit your Black Series Luke Indian style,
Mm-hmm.
and reenact that scene?
Yeah, I don't know. So
Yeah, I mean, it's like when the Mandalorian and Ahsoka came back out, they threw a Beskar spear in there, and it's like, here's a repack for $45, and you get the Beskar spear with this.
right, which, if anybody with a 3D printer can 3D print a Beskar spear for $1.
Exactly.
I mean, granted, you had to pay $300 for the 3D printer, but man, you make 300 Beskar spears and sell them at $1 a piece. You got your money back.
Right. Exactly. Set up at
um,
Toylanta, $5. Hell,
yeah,
sell them for $5, and you'd still sell out.
right. So back to Toylanta. I was the Four Horsemen was the highlight of the show for me. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I went back to that table over
Mm-hmm.
just to see if they put something new out. And I actually had to stop myself from going because I would want to buy something every time. I ended up buying 5 things from them over the course of a weekend, which was, again, small potatoes because my buddy Ricky ended up getting, like, I think he bought 2 boxes full of figures. It was crazy how much stuff he ended up
Yeah.
getting. But
And we have another friend that spent probably $2K over the weekend at Mythic Legions. Yeah, I was doing the same thing, and you
so
literally have to stop because there was at least 2 other figures I could have bought, like the Tila
mhm.
figure, and then they had the vampire figure with the hood. That both figures I really dug, but I'm like, that's another $80. I just got
Yep.
stopped.
I wanted the Centaur. That's the one that I kind of regret not picking up,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I saw a really cool, like, a main playability uh, thing with these figures is that they're all modular. So yes, you're buying a specific character, but they're made to pull apart, and you can make your own figures. Like, you can use the head of this character with the chest of this character and the legs of this character. So, like, that's one of the big things, is the, like, the pop and swap customization, because they're all
Mm-hmm.
modular.
Right.
And um after Toylanta ended, I saw a really cool pop and swap with the Centaur figure, and I was like, damn, I regret not getting that Centaur figure now.
Yeah, because you and Robert, Richard. I don't know
Richard,
why
yeah.
I keep going and call him Robert. And he just gets to the point where he just answers to both, which I'm like, yeah, you know what, I do that too. But yeah, you were saying that the body can come off, so you could put another totally different body on the
Yeah.
centaur on the horse. So,
Yeah. So
um,
I regret not getting that, but
yeah. I don't want to go on Mythic. I want to stay on Mythic Legions another
okay.
couple of minutes before we
Yeah,
go back to
sure.
Toylanta. But no, I just love the community of that, and I'm just because you're when you're at the show, you're like, all right. I asked because David from Second Chance was like, who are those guys selling? Are they, street team members? Who are they? What are they doing? And so I asked, and they're like, no, we're the owners.
Mm-hmm.
And their passion for everything is just, we talked about this yesterday. You sit there talking and you're just like, here's my wallet. Just
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want. I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
you're on the fence about getting into these guys, you talk to the owners and you listen to them and you talk to the fans and you're like, I got to get in on this because it's just I mean, I love my Star Wars, but Star Wars has become very toxic, over the past few years. And you
Mm-hmm.
do have that toxic element and, we're trying to fight that, but Mythic Legions is just, they don't care. They're like, all right, you buy one or you buy 100, they're just as
Mm-hmm.
welcoming. That whole community is just, it's totally different.
Yeah, and there was also a dude at the booth by the name of Walter who runs the I guess I don't know if it's official, but it's the biggest Mythic Legions fan page on Facebook called the Mythic Legions Cabal, and he every time he goes to shows, he has Cabal T-shirts made, and he just hands them out for free.
Yeah.
Like he absorbs the cost of that, and he just hands them out for free. And I ended up getting one, and I ended up chatting with Walter, and I got him in my video. Like he has a good 10-minute chunk in the video that I wanted to give him all the time he wanted because I wanted him to, I wanted to showcase him and what he does with the Mythic Legions Cabal and just the broader Mythic Legions community as well. And let me tell you, the nicest dude, the coolest guy, the nicest guy. I did not, anytime I went towards or to or hung out at that Mythic Legions table, everyone was really cool with everyone else. The owners were super cool. I ended up having a spontaneous combustion or not spontaneous combustion. I randomly exploded.
I looked back at the drum set and all we saw was a little pile of dust. We don't know what happened.
I had a spontaneous conversation with one of the designers. I think his name's Joe, about just some popping and swapping for some upcoming figures. And he was what happened was I mentioned something that I had seen was a digibash that somebody created on the Cabal, and I asked him about it, and then I actually saw him. I saw the gears working in his head, and he started to test out that hypothesis in real time, and he started to pop and swap the figures. He's like, well, if we did this and we did this, and like I could just see his brain in motion. And I'm like, I did not expect him to go which was super cool.
Right.
And it was a really cool conversation. And he goes like, man, you know what? I think I can make this work. And I just saw him go to town, and it was so cool.
Right. I saw them do that a couple of different times where they're pulling, popping, swapping and stuff. And, they also had test shots, and they were not afraid to let you touch them. They were, several times I reached over and, talking to somebody, and I'm like, yeah, look at this. You're picking up the test shot and showing it to somebody. Nobody's stopping you. I mean, I'm sure they're paying attention, but they're not telling you to put it down. They want you to touch their stuff, touch them and play with them and see what they are. And like that one green guy, the big, huge guy from Cosmic Legions. I'm telling my wife, I'm like, when that was released, it was a $60 figure. And she's like, oh, excuse me? It was what? And that's a $200, probably a $200 figure in Star Wars or 150, so when my wife can look at them and she doesn't complain that I'm spending money on them, I kind of just, okay, great. Because she knows, she knows the value, and as long as I don't go overboard, it's fine. Because when I did the pre-order, I pre-ordered 3 of them, and she's like, now's the time to get them, because if you wait longer, you're gonna pay double. So
I'm really happy that I'm by no means an original fan from day one for Mythic Legions. I've only been actively collecting them for maybe a year and a half at most. Um, but I have noticed that since I've come aboard, they've started to reach a broader audience.
Yeah.
And I think they deserve it, because I think, one, they're good people, and two, they make good quality figures. And I would like to see this flourish into something that's a big. I want to. It would be really cool to see Mythic Legions on like toy retailer pegs and not have to be an approved. But I'm not sure if that's their style. Right. So I don't know if I'm going to ever walk into a Target or a Walmart and be able to pull a Mythic Legion off of a peg.
I kind of don't want to do that. I kind of like the fact that you have to hunt them down.
It's kind of, I don't know, it kind of makes it a little bit more special.
Right.
If you have to go through certain means to acquire them. As far as like approved e-tailers and retailers.
Right.
So but I don't know. I think that, I think you're probably right. And I say that not to be elitist or anything, because I mean, the toys are there for everybody to enjoy.
Right. Exactly.
I would love for them to be able to, gain more popularity. I'm not saying that they're not popular now, but I would love them to continue that momentum of them gaining popularity.
Yeah. But I want to get back to Walter for a minute, because every time you saw him, he was just like, "Hey man, what's up?" And he may not remember you, but he pretends to remember you, or he
probably remembers your face.
Right. He's probably like me. It's like, "Hey dude, how you doing?" Because I don't, it's guy and dude and man and ace and, and then
there's only one Walter, but then, I'll show Grace. He probably doesn't remember my name, which is fine, but everybody remembers him because there's only one of him, but he's meeting like 30 people a day.
Yeah.
So.
And he was, when I posted in the Cabal, he's like, "Dude, I told you I was a plastic crack dealer," and he's interacting. he's really, it's like, it gives you, it's like, I want to be like Walter, when it comes to Star Wars, just be that addicting, and that good of a ambassador for the thing, for Star Wars, for the stuff I love. And that dude's just contagious, man.
Yeah, no, he's a super good dude. And then, like, kind of the original point I was getting at, it was like, anytime I would go up to the table, like, there was nobody that was like, "Hey man, keep it moving. Right. Like, everyone was like really cool with everyone else. And, everybody who had already gone through once was really cool about letting the people who hadn't gone through go through. And then once the line dissipated, everyone was really cool about just walking up and checking stuff out. And like, all in all, it was a fantastic experience. And I think that just the Mythic Legions and just the Four Horsemen in general stole the show. Like, that was the highlight of the show.
They definitely did. They were, it just, like you were saying there, like with the line and stuff, that's the only time they were like being sticklers for stuff. They were like, "All right, we're not going to sell before, doors are at 6, even though you're in here now, I'm not selling to you till my line's done. You're more than welcome to go stand in line." And, but we've had people that have been here all day waiting to get in to buy these figures. And we're going to do this all weekend. So don't think you're special because you're in here. And that was the only time that they were kind of, they were just being sticklers for the rules, is when it came to that line.
I don't even think it was like being stickler. I think they just wanted to be fair.
Right. That's what I mean. They were trying to be fair. That was the only time, the stickler, quote unquote, but they were trying to be fair to the people that had waited.
I also know that this is their first time in the South.
Yeah.
So this is the first show they've done, because they're from Jersey, so, and they'll go west a little bit to PowerCon. But they're primarily like a Northeastern show company. So the fact that they came to Toylanta and it was their first show was also a very big deal.
Right. And I talked to them a little bit and they were like, Toylanta wants us back. I don't know what we kind of want to go to Florida to do something. We may do something to where we go to Florida, do a big show in Florida, but have our street team here. And then we'll come back in 2 years. So, it's a pretty cool time. I didn't realize that. I don't want to, but anyway, that I didn't realize they'd been around for as long as they had. I guess because what you were saying, the Four Horsemen's been around a lot longer than Mythic Legions has. But yeah, it's just refreshing when you see a toy company that's there for their fans. They're not. I mean, they're there to make money, but the fans come first.
No, I agree 100%. Do you want to move on and talk about the rest?
Yeah,
let's.
That's enough Mythic Legion talk. Let's finish Toylanta.
Oh, real quick, my Mythic Legions pickups. I got the Kawaros. I got a Varg, which was the deluxe vampire dwarf.
Yeah.
I got the counterpart to your red Minotaur. I got the other guy. So I got the one that you could do the skeleton or the hoplite character.
Okay.
I also got the Scaphoid, which was the green skeleton. And then I picked up the half giant Cyclops. His name is Archimedes.
Gotcha.
So those are the ones that I picked up. Still should have got that Centaur.
Yeah, trust me, I'm kicking myself for not picking some stuff up.
I've got some people looking out for me.
That's awesome.
So the rest of the venue itself was it was a new hotel. It was off Peachtree Industrial. Last year it was in Marietta, Georgia. Yep. And to be honest with you, a lot of people complained about the size of the venue in Marietta. I actually didn't hate it. It did get a little nuts to butts in some areas. But I didn't hate it. Also, the fact that Marietta is just like 20 minutes away from us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The new venue, the show floor space, I think was bigger.
Right.
That main room was bigger. So I think it gave everybody some more elbow room, because I never at once in any of the rooms felt like I was encroaching on somebody's personal space.
Right.
And so I guess if I had any complaint or critique, not even a complaint, it was a critique of the new hotel, was that there was like zero lobby.
Right.
There was no lobby, and there was no place to, aside from the hotel, restaurant, and bar, to just sit down and take five.
Right.
But then if you sit there, you feel bad because there are people that might actually want to sit and eat and drink. But you're taking up a seat when then the hotel servers come by and they're like, "Oh, do you want anything?" And you're like, "No, I'm just sitting." Like they're not going to kick you out, even though they probably have every right to. But I felt like every time I was sitting there and I wasn't eating or drinking, I was taking away a seat from somebody who didn't want to eat and drink. So that would be my only critique of that new venue. But everything else was fantastic.
Right.
So I walking around the main showroom. I also Pixel Dan was there, and he wrote a book about vintage Masters of the Universe figures. And I had been wanting to purchase that book for a while, but I had also known that he does a lot of these toy shows, and I wanted to get one from him personally. So that night, whenever he didn't have a line, I went up and I chatted with him, and I got him in the video. But I picked up a book from him, and he was really cool. He joked around with us, and what I thought was really awesome, and he didn't have to do this, was that he remembered us throughout the weekend. So anytime we would pass through the room looking for stuff, he would wave to us, be like, "Oh, hey guys, how's it going?" And which was just really nice of him. He was really nice and really cool. So I picked up his book, and there were a lot of similar vendors. Our buddy Martin, who puts on the Toy Swap, he was there in the back wall of that room selling some really cool vintage stuff. There was the Nowhere Comics. I think they're based out of Miami. I see them at every Toylanta, and those guys have some good stuff too.
Right.
There was a heavy G.I. Joe presence there, and I know that like there's been a lot of talk about. It might have actually been you and Jason. I can't remember, but I know that like people were surprised that there was as much G.I. Joe there as
Yeah, I was really surprised and kind of annoyed, truthfully, if you want to get into it, because they split the shows up. They went from being Joe Lana.
So
First,
it
it
was
started
Joe
off.
Lana. It
It
was
was
Joe Lana.
right.
Then there were other toy vendors that came in, so it turned
Mhm.
into Toylanta.
Yep.
And then isn't the story that like I guess the Joe Lanta guys were a little miffed, so then they created the new Joe Lanta?
Yep.
Okay.
They were getting mad because everybody was going to these 12-inch GI Joe. Then it was not the 3 3/4 GI Joe; it's the 12-inch GI
Mm-hmm.
Joes. And these people were apparently getting aggravated that people were going and asking for other toy lines. So that's the story as to why they created Joe, split them back up and did Joe Lana and Toy Lana so that the Joe guys could have their own show and the toy guy, everybody else could have the other show. And when I walked in that main floor, I was like, this is Joe Lana again. Why are all these Joe guys here when they wanted to have their own show? And it felt like the good booths were all GI Joe guys, and it kind of was a little perturbing because a half of that big room was 12-inch GI Joes, if
I
not more.
I did see a lot of 12-inch Joes, and I definitely did see a lot of repeat vendors from uh, the previous year.
Uh-huh.
I guess it does like I'm not surprised that
Mm.
the Joe guys were there. Like it didn't bother me that the Joe guys were there because GI Joe is like that kicks off like that is the action figure.
Right.
That GI Joe was the thing, like the first quote unquote action figure that kicked off the action figure revolution. Um, so the fact that GI Joe did have a presence, because GI Joe is still a toy. It's called Toylanta,
Right.
and GI Joe is still a toy. Um, I guess I could probably see the argument where like those guys wanted to their own show, but I guess my counter argument to that would be, well, why set up at one show when you can set up at two and make twice the money?
Right. And
So
yeah, I see your point too, but I guess it just, I don't know. I felt like there was a split,
mhm,
and because Joe Lana was like, if you're gonna come set up here, you've got to have so many GI Joes or action adventure stuff. You can't have
mhm,
space stuff,
mhm.
and so that kind of was a little bit of an irk. But then I talked to people who set up there, and they're like, I brought my normal setup, and I didn't have any GI Joes, and I did
Right.
great.
So I guess also like looking at GI Joe is that the I noticed that there wasn't a lot of Star Wars specific vendors this year.
Yeah,
I saw there was AVT
right.
who's heavy on Star Wars, and then I saw like one, maybe two or three other vendors that had a handful of like more recent Black Series and vintage collection stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I did not see a lot of Star Wars vendors at this show this year.
There wasn't a lot of Star Wars vendors, but there was a lot of Star Wars. There was and it also was, I mean, there, because I think there's some change going on in the Star Wars hobby as far as people not buying the higher end stuff, because there were some $100 mint on card things that sat the whole weekend
Mm-hmm.
that I was like, if I was a mint on card collector, I'd have picked those up
Mm-hmm.
because they should have been, $50 to $60 more than what they were, and they sat all weekend. But then like the $5 buckets, those were getting, people were going through that. I saw somebody buy one of the Ewok battle wagons. I think the guy had like $700 on it. And I think he got a couple of $100 off, which he
Mm-hmm.
still got a hell of a deal for that. But a lot of the Star Wars sat if it was high end. And I didn't pay enough attention to everything else to see what was moving. But right now, I think a lot of the higher end stuff that was selling 2 years ago is now sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Star Wars people are like in the same boat that I'm kind of in, where it's like, I've got everything Star Wars that I really, truly want. I'm not really going to upgrade anything because to buy things twice doesn't make
Right.
sense to me. Um, I think Star Wars is just kind of in a lull right now.
I kind of think, and I'm probably wrong on this because I don't collect vintage and I don't collect the higher end carded vintage figures, et cetera, et cetera. But I kind of think that Star Wars is stagnant at the moment.
I agree.
And I think it's very evident that Star Wars is stagnant after that big collecting boom, pandemic, and just post pandemic. or immediately post pandemic. Um, that I think Star Wars is now getting to a point, especially after those two giant auctions that just happened.
Yep.
I think that Star Wars is now pricing people out of collecting Star Wars. And
Yeah.
I think the Beanie Baby equation is going to come in where the bottom is going to fall out, and that people are going to have these carded figures and they're going to ask tens of thousands of dollars for them, for like, this Boba Fett, or that Boba Fett, or this Vader, or that, um and no one's gonna buy them. And I think the bottom is gonna fall out. I think some of those prices will tank.
Yeah.
I won't say they won't tank to what they were 10, 12, or 20 years ago, but I do think that a lot of people might just go, can't afford that, can't buy it. And then
Right.
a lot of people are going to be sitting on, it's cool to say that you have all these cool vintage figures, but if you're a vendor and you're trying to sell them, the whole point is that you're trying to sell them. And if you're
Right.
sitting on them, you're not selling them. So what good is it doing anybody? Nothing.
Right. And I heard on
So,
another podcast, somebody was talking because they just did a prototypes and production, David Quinn's podcast.
mm-hmm.
They just did a Columbus toy show, and one of the vendors were there. And he was like, if I spent, or during the pandemic, I spent $70 on something and now it's 60, I'm losing money. Or because the prices have just dropped, have just done that, have dropped that much. Or, and as a vendor, if, like I said, you spend $70 on something, you've got to sell it for 100 to make money, and nobody's going to buy it at 100 because it's worth 65 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, where Star Wars is at, that people went crazy during the pandemic and finished off their run. Well, number one, I think people were able to finish off runs during the pandemic, and people overpaid for stuff because it did get crazy. I mean, there's still some pieces that are crazy because, like a Yak Face, that guy that had the Psykill, he had a Yak Face and he wanted $600 for it. And
nope.
dude, I paid in 17, I paid $225 for mine. And I was like, whoa. And it was like, I had the money. So it wasn't, but it was like, holy crap, I just paid $220 for a loose vintage figure. And now they're wanting, I mean, a blue Snags at the $300 range. And I think the same time I paid $100 for my blue Snag in 17. So it's just, it's crazy where Star Wars is at right now.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Again, like I think I say it every time we talk. It's like I feel like Star Wars collectors are a very specific type of collector too.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of things that go on in the Star Wars collecting community that I don't necessarily see in like Transformers or Marvel or even Mythic Legions, or name insert franchise collector here. Name a franchise collection here, right? So I don't know. I have so many thoughts on it that it's difficult to articulate at this moment right now.
Right.
I could probably write an essay on the stuff I've just observed.
Right.
And, granted, this is also the stuff that one man has observed, not multiple people. But so take that for what it's worth. But
right.
It's,
and I think what happens is you've got people in the Star Wars community that have been collecting, and I don't want to. Gatekeeping is a strong term, and we have them in the community, and you get people that are just like, oh, you collect modern stuff. I don't want to hang out with you because you collect modern stuff. You don't have the vintage stuff that I collect. And it's like, who gives a shit, man? It's Star Wars. And that's where I'm at. It's like, hey, I don't care. You're collecting Star Wars. We're both into the same thing. We collect differently. I was able to amass my collection years ago when stuff was cheap. And you can't do that. I'd hate to do what look at my collection and try to do a full 92 run nowadays. There's no way in hell I could afford it. Not when, Yak Face is $600, pop-up R2s in that range. I probably got $600 in my last 17, and all my last 17, maybe 1,000. But nowadays you can't even get two figures for that.
I know, that's crazy, man. And that's a large portion of why I haven't jumped in vintage. So I don't have the money, I don't have the space, and I definitely don't have the time.
Right.
So,
and if you're going to spend $1,000 on figures, Four Horsemen, man. Last to get some mythics.
Exactly. Right. So the show floor, the main toy room was fantastic.
Yeah.
There were the two side rooms. There's one where the Kenner, the former Kenner guys were there.
Yep.
And there were a couple of interesting booths in there. I didn't really spend too much time in that room specifically. The room right next to it had the dude with the posters. He was trying to peddle. He had like the big corner booth.
Oh yeah.
All right. This is something that annoys me because he was at the show last time, and man, so nothing against this dude, but it always bothers me being a guest. Whenever not a guest, but when I pay and I pay to go to a show, I want to browse. I want to look through. I want to not feel pressured to buy something from somebody.
Right.
And this dude he was laying it on super thick, and he was not being subtle about it at all. So like I walked in and I was wearing my Jar Jar Binks Misa Fits shirt. It looks like the Misfits.
Oh yeah.
Jar Jar Binks. And then so I walked in and I just started to like casually look in the direction of the posters, and he goes, "Hey, I have some Misfits posters over here. You want it? I've got like 3 or 4 Misfits posters. You should get. I saw your Misfits t-shirt, so I have some Misfits posters over here." And like, I hate that. So and then he's like, I always try to like, I point out stuff that people are wearing, and then I point in the direction of the stuff I have. I'm like, buddy, for the future reference, you came on a little too strong.
Yeah.
So like, whenever like vendors do that to me, 100% I will not spend money at your booth. And that annoys the hell out of me so much because I have an entire show to look at. The last thing I need is somebody trying to give me the hard sell on something that's related to a t-shirt that I'm wearing.
Right. Well, and yeah, he did that to Mandy, and we were both like, dude, we ain't got room for posters, man. You could tell I don't have room for art.
And the irony is I probably would have picked up 1 or 2 things because I did see 2 or 3 posters that I really liked, but because he was that pushy, nah, you're not getting my money.
Right.
I hate that.
I do. Yeah, Mandy did wear like an ET shirt one day or Saturday, or when she came on Sunday, and there were a few people that were just like, "Oh yeah, I got ET stuff over here." That's different. You know, if you do see the shirt I have on and say, "Oh yeah, I've got some stuff over here," let me know if you have any questions. It's a totally different sale. Yeah, but that dude, he put it on hard.
Yeah. He I didn't get anything from that room. And then there was the bottom corner room where a couple of my friends were set up. I saw some interesting stuff in there, but again, nothing I walked away with. And then there was the X-Wing.
Yes.
Which was a fantastic name for that whole wing of the show. And I didn't realize how big that back room was until I walked in, because you're going down the hallway from the lobby, and then you take that hard left, and it's like, okay, it's a tiny room. It's got 3 vendors in it. But then there's the room connected to that. And when you walk in, it's just another large room. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that this was hiding all the way back here.
Right. And that room was like the size of a smaller toy swap.
Mm-hmm.
It had a lot of vendors in there.
It had a lot of vendors. That room was heavy on the vintage, I noticed.
Yes. I think vintage that was turtles, their plan.
Vintage, yeah. That's where AVT was set up. That's where oh man, I forgot is it Fernando who sets up the cool dioramas?
Yep.
Yeah, he had an awesome Naboo battle scene diorama this time. So
yeah, and they had our buddies in Nerd U were back there.
Yep.
So that was real heavy on a lot of vintage. And then they had like the Mythic Legions customizers were back there, and I'm like, why aren't these guys right next to Mythic Legions? Because they would do a lot better business. But you know,
I wonder if there was some kind of weird. Like, I don't think that the Mythic Legions guys were mad that they were there, but I think that there might be some weird like logistics behind that. Like we don't want. I think the 2 didn't want to take sales away from the others. That's why they probably put them in 2 separate sections.
Right. And they had a whole line of customizers back there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I almost bought one of those custom figures.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a really cool skeleton with a jack-o'-lantern head. That
Dude,
looked
that
really
one
cool.
was awesome. If
So
I
I
was
almost, yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't buy that as big of a Halloween fan as you are.
Yeah, I had the money, but I was like, listen, I could spend this $100 on this one custom figure, which is not a bad price because you got to think you're paying $40 for a base figure,
Mhm.
and then you're buying a custom piece that has been painted and created. So you're paying an artist for their time,
Right.
right? Like right when you buy a poster or a print or a painting or something. So you are by all accounts buying an art piece. So
Right.
$100 for one of those is not bad at all.
No, because I mean, considering the head is probably a $20 to $30 head.
Exactly. But I was like, I could buy one of these guys for a hundo, or I can go back and grab two more figures that I want for
Right.
and still have $20 left over. So that's
That
what I ended up doing.
I have that battle in my head every show. Every time I buy something, you're
Mm-hmm.
doing the calculations.
Um, I'm trying to remember if I picked up anything. I didn't pick up anything for me from that room.
Mhm.
There was a really cool booth all the way against the back wall. If you remember, he was the middle dude in the back wall. If you're looking at the back wall, to the right would have been the booth with all the really cool box Dino Riders.
Uh-huh.
And then to the left of him would have been the booth with all the Shogun Warriors.
Okay. Yeah, oh yeah.
So it was this dude in the middle, and up front he had a whole bunch of vintage for 80s figures, and I was flipping through, and I found a complete Food Fighter figure
Oh wow.
for my buddy Dan, who lives out in Jersey, and Dan's always helped me find Mythic Legion stuff since they do shows up there often. So I sent him a text, and he's like, "Oh man, that's a good price, and that's complete. Pick it up for me." So I picked it up. This complete Food Fighter for about $40.
Nice.
So I'm going to send that off to him. I don't think I purchased anything for myself in that room, but I did like there were a couple of Kraken figures out, loose Kraken figures from the Clash of the Titans line from the early 80s, and those looked awesome. I didn't know that they made those. I found out about them a couple of years ago, but every time I see one, it's no less impressive. It just looks so cool.
You're talking about the big, huge Kraken, right?
Yeah, the big Kraken with like 4 arms.
Yeah.
The old Harryhausen stop motion animation.
Yeah.
So maybe it was Harryhausen. I can't remember. I think it was. But I didn't buy anything out there. There were some really cool things in the hallway from the hallway vendors, but I didn't buy anything from them. And then the only other thing that I purchased was in the main room on the main horizontal aisle. I saw a lunchbox, a GoBots lunchbox, and the lunchbox itself had a couple of nicks and scratches on it, but the picture, the painted picture, was pristine.
Nice.
And it came with a thermos, and the picture on the thermos was pristine as well. And they only wanted $15 for it.
Wow.
So I picked it up, and it was a really good price because I remember seeing a different, like it was the same lunchbox, but from a different vendor last year that was asking $25 for it. And I almost bought it then, but I didn't. So when I saw this one for $15, I jumped on it.
Nice.
So, but yeah, man, I was fortunate enough to meet so many new friends and some other YouTubers that I follow, and was able to go grab dinner with one or two of them one of the nights, and all around it was a fun show.
Yeah, because like I said in your video, I changed my head space for this and turned it into a convention in my head, and it was more you make it more into hanging out with people versus shopping for toys, and it's a totally different experience.
Right. This, as much as like it might sound ludicrous, but Toylanta, I think, has replaced Dragon Con as my most looked forward to show out of the year.
Dude, I could see that. I enjoy Dragon Con, but I'll go every couple of years. you know, or if I know that somebody's coming, like right now, I'm waiting. The Rebels, the animated Rebels cast are making the rounds, so I'm like, I hope they come to Dragon Con, because then I'll go and get some autographs. But that would be the only reason that would get me to Dragon Con this year. But Dragon Con. The thing about Dragon Con is it feels like it repeats. Like every other vendor is the same vendor.
Yeah.
But you don't go to Dragon.
You don't go to Dragon Con to buy stuff. Like that's a perk, right? Like going to the vendor space is kind of a perk, and it is the same vendors every time. I very rarely see somebody new.
Right.
But I don't know. I tend to go. That's an art show for me. Like I tend to spend a lot of my money in the art room there.
Yeah, we went a couple of years ago, and it never fails, man. You always got that one you're looking at, and you're like, well, they're you pick up like 2 pieces, and they're, oh yeah, man, they're like, you get 3 more pieces for $50, and you're like, damn it, here you go.
Yeah.
So you end up walking away with a lot more art than what you were expecting. But yeah, that you're right. Dragon Con has become an art show, and you go to hang out and see the cosplay, because the cosplay is incredible at Dragon Con. Although there were some good cosplayers this year at Toylanta too.
There was the dude that dressed up like Warduke from Dungeons and Dragons.
I saw that. That dude had some balls.
That was so good. There was the preview night. There was a dude dressed up like Major Blood from the G.I. Joe cartoon, which was really good. Then there were a couple people who had their own like cosplay table.
Yeah.
And on Saturday they cosplayed as Mythic Legions characters.
I saw that. I didn't know.
So good.
Yeah, I was like, okay, are these really Mythic Legions characters, or is it people that are dressing up to, that it's close enough to a Mythic Legions character?
Yeah, no, they were Mythic Legions. There was a goblin and a skeleton warrior, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then those same 2 people cosplayed as Masters of the Universe characters on Sunday. There was a Tila, and I think it was a Tila and a merman. Yeah.
I felt really bad for Tila, because I was walking the opposite way, and there was a guy walking behind her going, I like your armor. And you're just like, guy, stop.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Because her butt's hanging out, and everybody's like, oh man, look at Tila, look at her butt. And I'm like, come on, guys.
Nah, like, come on. Cosplay is not consent. Come
on. Right.
It's
like, you know what? And, get a quick view, but then don't stare. Yes, she looked great as Tila, but there's no need to like stare her down. Right. Because you could tell she was getting, at least it felt she was a little bit uncomfortable, but it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, man, just all in all, it was a fun weekend, and for me, it was kind of a blur. I actually brought my buddy Jeremy, who was in town, and he hadn't been to a toy show ever.
Wow.
So it was his first toy convention, and he ended up picking up a handful of loose Marvel Legends. I know Richard ended up buying a handful of Mythic Legions the first night, and then as he was walking, this is a funny story. So we were walking around on Saturday, and he's like, man, I have money that I know I want to spend, but I just can't find anything. He's like, I guess I'll just buy some more Mythic Legion stuff. So I was like, all right, well, let's go grab a bite to eat. And then if you still want some, we'll come back and grab some. He's like, okay. So while we were at lunch, he was scrolling on his phone. We left the property for lunch. We went up to Peachtree Corners and ate at the Lazy Dog.
That's a great place.
Yeah, it was probably like a 10-minute drive. So
yeah.
As we were eating lunch, he was scrolling through his phone, and then he tapped it a couple times and went, well, I just bought a PlayStation 5.
Oh, jeez.
I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I guess Target was having a deal on PlayStation 5s where the God of War pack with which is normally like almost $600. I think it was like $510, but he used his Target card and got 5% off.
Oh, yeah.
I think he got it for under $500. And
nice.
He's like, well, I spent all my Toylanta money on a PlayStation 5. So.
well, that's a good hack. If you guys, join the Target Red Club and get a red card, because you save 5%, and you could put it on your phone and you just scan it. So I always get mad if I leave my phone in the car and I'm like, I don't need it. I'm just going to run in real quick, and you end up buying something and you're like, damn it.
And free shipping if you do the order off the website too.
Yeah. So join the Red Club at Target.
This was not sponsored by Target. Yeah, fun show. I felt like it was kind of a blur because I was trying to equally hang out with everybody, say
Yeah.
hi to everybody, but I was also trying to film.
Yeah.
So I feel like I blinked and then 6 hours went by.
Yep.
So,
what, because they haven't announced 2024 yet, but I'm also hearing that they're trying to move it to or they're thinking about moving it to a convention center so you can have it more like Joe Fest.
I wouldn't be mad at that because I thought the layout of Joe Fest was really, really good. And if they have that convention center, then that would allow them more floor space for more vendors.
Right.
So the show has potential to grow.
Yeah.
Which I think would be a good move for them. I guess it would kind of suck for people who like to stay at the hotel where the vendors, or not the vendors, but the show gets put on. So, but I mean, you can't, every show can't be in a hotel convention space, but I wouldn't be mad at that.
Yeah. Well, plus I'm sure there's hotels that are really close to a convention center. I mean, there's a really nice one right down the street in Cobb County that I keep telling them, go look. I don't know what it costs to rent it, but I'm sure you could put on a hell of a toy show there. And I also think they may need to consider taking Sunday out because Sunday was deader than a doornail, man.
I would keep Sunday in.
You think?
Yeah, because I feel like Sunday's a good option for people that can't go on Fridays.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, unless you take off of work, people get off of work at like, let's say 5. The preview night starts at 6. You're not going to go all the way home, change, and then make it back in and out. So I think having Sunday and just, having it start later and end a bit sooner is still a good move.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, and then I heard another rumor, speaking of Joe Fest, I heard that they're thinking of moving it to Atlanta versus taking it out of Augusta. I've only heard it from one person. Have you heard anything?
No, I haven't heard anything. Because it's called Joe Fest, but it's also called the Augusta Toy Show.
Right.
So unless they're thinking about branching out and doing 2 shows, one in Augusta and one in Atlanta, I don't know. Huh.
It'd be good for us. Then we wouldn't have to drive to Augusta, but it's a fun drive. It makes a long day, but it's a fun day. And
And whenever we were, when we had a car full of people, it didn't seem like it was a 2-hour and 40-minute drive.
Yeah. Well, because we were creating content that whole both rides.
It was that the drive up there though, like in the morning. I guess it was just because I woke up early. Jason was already in the car in the cul-de-sac waiting for me.
Jason's always he's up at like 6:30, 7 o'clock every morning, man. I'm like, man, let me sleep till like 7:30, 8. Because it like we record at 9:30 on Saturdays, and I'm like, I'll roll out of bed and I'm like, man, it's only 8 o'clock, man. Give me another half an hour, but I know I got to get up and get coffee and get going, so we can record. But yeah, Jason's a very early riser.
He's on top of things. So
yes, he is.
So I'm not mad at it.
Nuh-uh. But awesome. Yeah, dude, I've been going to Toylanta for like 10 years. And this year I was not very excited about going into it, but coming out of it, it got my excitement back. And I think it was, you realize the more you get into this, toys become less and less important. And you've got to adjust your mindset to that. And once you adjust your mindset to that, you're going to have a great time.
No, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
If Four Horsemen didn't show up, I think I probably would have spent under $100 all weekend. So.
Exactly. I would have probably walked away with cash in my pocket because I went in with about $100. My budget for Toylanta was about $100, and then I saw the Four Horsemen stuff, and I think I spent like $200 just on Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
And then
sorry about that.
That's all right, dude. You need to scratch that itch, man, and it just And it's weird because you're looking for stuff to buy, and you right now it's impossible, not impossible, but it's really hard. Because I was talking to one of the Kenner guys, and he's like, what are you looking for? I'm like, when I see it, I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah.
So anything else?
No, man, I think I'm good. I think we covered it. We've been at it for about an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's 1:30. So yeah, we have been. Awesome. Well, I'm going to try to do this from memory mode. I'm not Jason, so if I mess it up, I'm sorry.
Can you just go and like cut it out from the previous episode? And
I was thinking of doing that, just taking the tag and being like, thank you. And then, why the hell's Jason here? And Jason would have been like, what am I doing there? I wasn't there.
Jason's been here the whole time. We just didn't give him a microphone.
Yeah. That's some of the best shows, when he'll like call in the middle of the show, and he's like in the middle of doing something, and it's like, hey man, what are you up to? All right, so let me see if I can do this from memory. Thank you for listening to the Smuggler's Galaxy podcast. Please give us a 5-star review on any on your Spotify or iTunes or Apple Play or all that fun crap. Thank you for Levi Waterhouse for the music and Alfonso Riviera for the logo. Let me see what else. Vote with your wallet. Be a positive force in the collecting galaxy. Hasbro, please release VC66. This is the way.
This is the way.